All right. Can you hear me? Yes. Okay, good deal, good deal. Thank you so much. Thank you very much for having me tonight. It's a pleasure to be in a room full of a lot of people who are much smarter than I am. I was a communications major, so my dad was the engineer in our family. He worked for John Deere for about 8 or 9 years towards the end of his career, and so I kind of feel right at home being with all you guys. I'm hoping that I don't know all of the guys that presented and all their different ideas, but I'm really hoping that whoever won is going to solve the problem of chickens smelling really, really bad. Was that anybody's thing? No, because my parents they lived in Holland for 3 years, but I went to visit them eventually, but when they first got over there, I'm like, so, what's it like in Holland? They're like, Tyler, it's awesome, but we live across the street from a chicken farm with 20,000 chickens, and when the wind blows the wrong way, it is awful. It smells terrible. So I was kind of hoping that'd be one of you guys' projects, but not today. Well, I want to talk to you guys a little bit about just some of my experiences being all over the world, and how I was afraid sometimes. Anybody ever been afraid of anything? Yeah, probably some of us have been afraid of something at one point or another. For me, as I was thinking about talking with you guys today, I'm like, all right, so what are my biggest fears? And they all start with S, for no reason in particular, but I'm afraid of snakes, sharks, and skydiving. So, and not necessarily in that order, just like all at once. They're all number one, right? I don't want to do any of those. Like skydiving with snakes and sharks would be like my ultimate worst thing ever. But my wife, skydiving is like the greatest thing ever, and she's like, you don't want to go skydiving with me? I'm like, no, that sounds awful. 2 weeks before our wedding, she's like, I'm going skydiving. I'm like, she's like, but listen, if anything happens, everything's already lined up, so you got to find somebody to like go down the aisle with you, because I put too much work into this wedding, okay? So she goes skydiving. I was like, sweetheart, somebody has to record this. I will happily be on the ground with a video camera and make sure that this is recorded. So I did not go, but she had the time of her life. But fears. Every day, we are afraid of something. And it might not be, of dying or sharks or snakes, but every day there's some little doubt, some little voice in your mind that tells you, I wouldn't do that. That's not going to go so well. And these kinds of thoughts, as I start to really think about it and dive into where I've been and all the fears that I've had, I'm able to kind of look back and see, okay, was that a rational fear? Was that something that I really needed to be concerned about? Or was that just one of these little voices that I need to learn how to stomp out of my brain and not listen to those loud voices of fears, but listen to the little whisper of, don't worry about that stuff. So one guy that I looked to and learned a lot of really neat things from is a guy named Adam Brown. So I've read about 15 books about Navy SEALs. And to me, they're some of the most fascinating people on the planet, because these guys go into the most hostile, dangerous, unbelievable circumstances all around the world in foreign countries, and they're expected to perform under incredible pressure. And this guy, Adam Brown, he grew up and he was kind of a screw up, for lack of a better term. He was doing drugs, he had no direction in his life, and he was able to basically get out of that life just enough and throw himself into the Navy, and he became a Navy SEAL. So Adam, he was on a training mission and he got shot in the face, lost vision in one of his eyes. And they said, well, Adam, thanks so much for your service, but you're done. You can't be a Navy SEAL with only one eye. And he says, well, give me a little time to recover and run me through the tests again, because you have to continually be passing some of these tests when you get injured. And so they said, no, you're done. He said, listen, you got to put me through the test. If I can pass it with one eye, you got to let me continue to be a Navy SEAL. So he said, okay, they gave him a shot, and he passed it. So he's got one eye, essentially. So then he goes over and he does another training mission, and his Humvee flips over and he crushes his right hand. So he's a right-handed guy, so he shoots with his right hand. They say, well, Adam, you can't be a Navy SEAL with you know, one eye. Okay, let you pass there, but you can't be a SEAL if you can't shoot with your right hand. He's like, give me some time. So Adam learns how to shoot with his left hand. He basically becomes left-handed and is able to complete all the exact same trainings and pass the exact same tests as all of his teammates did. So here he is. He's got one good working eye, one good working hand, and the guy just cannot be stopped. And that's what it just blows me away about these Navy SEALs is their never quit attitude. And the guys that come into training, they go through something called BUDS, and they have something called Hell Week, where you go from Sunday to Friday, and you sleep anywhere from about 1 to 3 hours over the course of a week, and it's just constant physical, just punishment, torture, everything. And the first, you know, from minute one, the instructors are trying to get you to quit, because if they can get you to quit, they know that you don't have what it takes to be Navy SEALs. And Navy SEALs will tell you, I will do anything, and I will never ever quit, and I would rather die than quit. That essentially is their mantra. I would rather die than give up on my mission, than give up on my teammates. And so this is Adam's attitude. He came back one time from a mission, and he was married to his wife, and he said, they were having a conversation one day, and he looks at his wife and he says, sweetheart, I don't really know how to tell you this, but I'm not afraid of anything. And she's like, wow, that's amazing. And he looked her in the eye, he's like, no, you don't understand. I'm not afraid of anything. And his wife, it kind of like gave her the chills. She was, whoa. He had been in some of the most stressful, intense situations. People were trying to shoot him and kill him in hostile places. And he had built up, through his training, this ability to compartmentalize any kind of fear, any kind of nerves that he had, and push it aside to be able to focus on what he needed to focus on and focus on his mission. And that kind of thing just blew me away. I'm like, how does a guy get to that point of not being able to have any kind of fear, any kind of worry in the most stressful situations possible? So in SEAL training, they do something called drown proofing. I don't know if you've ever heard of this, but they will tie your hands behind your back, they'll tie your feet together, and they throw you in the deep end of the pool. And they say, all right, hang on for the next 15 minutes. What are you supposed to do? You can't move your arms, can't move your legs. And so these guys have to manage that fear of drowning, and they have to find a way to get enough air over and over again for 15 minutes. You talk about a stressful situation. And there's a lot of guys who don't pass it through that. And then at the end of that 15 minutes, they say, okay, swim down to the other end of the pool and back, go. And these guys are flailing around like wounded dolphins trying to get down and back, but they make it. Can you imagine that fear? Can you imagine the fear of, I'm not going to get enough air? And some of these guys, they actually do go under. They actually do drown essentially temporarily. They bring them out, boom, give them CPR, or not CPR, but the mouth to mouth, and they get them back. And there are guys that will say, "Get me back in that water. I would rather die than quit." And these are guys that, through extremely intense training over months and months and years, have been able to basically take any kind of fears that they had and compartmentalize them and put them away because they're so focused on their mission. I heard a guy talking recently this week, and he was talking about how he went through a simulated Navy SEAL training, and he was so ready to quit. They were lying in 45-degree water over the course of about 12 or 13 minutes right before they hit hypothermia. They have all these charts. It's unbelievable. The Navy has all these charts. Okay, this degree water, and you're this many pounds. You can be in there for like 13 and a half minutes before you hit hypothermia. So we'll pull you out at like, 13 and 29 seconds. So this guy's in the water, and he's like 4 minutes into this. And the instructor says to him, "You know the reason why you're not going to make this And they're all just shivering like crazy. He says, the reason why you're not going to make this, and you're only 4 minutes in, is because you're too focused on yourself. And all these guys have arms linked. They're lying down in the surf, 45-degree water rolling over top of them. And when they do this at night, it's especially worse, because during the daytime, at least you can look up and there's sun, and maybe that'll keep you a little bit warm when the waves subside, but this is at nighttime. And he says, if you focus on the man next to you, that is when you start to take the discomfort off of you, and you start focusing on something else. And it was a really fascinating point, and these guys are trained to have a swim buddy at all time. They can never go anywhere without their swim buddy. And so they're so focused on making sure and encouraging their swim buddy that they're going to be okay, that it helps them get through some of this discomfort. One of the things too that they talk about, any of these Navy SEALs, if you ever hear them talk or read any of their books, about this idea of being comfortable with being uncomfortable. Every time I went overseas, I would land in a new country. I didn't know the language, I didn't know where I was going, I didn't know how to get food. Hopefully I had somebody from the team pick me up from the airport, but not always. And when I would get there, I was just so out of my element. I can remember it was day 1 or day 2 in Italy, and it was my second year out of college, and I was at a payphone because they gave me an apartment, but I didn't have a working phone, I didn't have internet, and so I'm like, well, I gotta get to a phone, so I went and found a payphone. It was like in the middle of this intersection, and I'm like, what am I doing at this payphone in Italy? Like, I don't even know where the grocery store is, but I really wanted to talk to family and to my girlfriend, who'd become my wife a little bit later, back home. And I just remember thinking, gosh, I'm just so uncomfortable and out of my element for right now. How am I going to make it for the next 9 months? Because I would sign with the team, and then I'd go overseas for about 9 months, and I'd be back here in the summers. But that 9 months, man, that looked like, oh my gosh, like decades away, not just 9 months. And after doing this 2 or 3 years, by like my 4th year, I kind of figured it out. I said, you know, I just have to get over there and know that I'm going to be uncomfortable for a couple of weeks. And if I can deal with being uncomfortable for a short period of time, then I'm going to be fine. I'll be able to figure out how to get to practice. You know, I'll be able to, you know, remember my teammates' names. I'll be able to communicate a little bit more. And so that whole idea of being able to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, it started to really grow on me, and man, it made things so much easier. So I wish my wife had learned that lesson a little bit faster, and here's why. We flew over to Japan. We had just had a baby. She was 2.5 months old, and I said, sweetheart, we got a job. We're going to Japan. And she said, oh, all right. So, you know, what do we got to do? I said, well, I don't know, but we're going to fly over there. They say they have an apartment for us, and you know, this team is supposed to be a really good team. It's supposed to be a good salary. Let's go check it out. So we fly over. It takes 24 hours to get there door to door from State College. And I don't know if you guys have ever had a baby at 2.5 months, but you would think they would sleep a little longer on a plane than 45 minutes in a 24-hour period. Ours did not. So 45 minutes, lots of screaming, lots of exhaustion. We landed there and we were done. You know, we're just, show me a bed or a curb. I will put my head anywhere right now. I'm so tired. And the assistant coach comes in and he says, hey, Tyler, welcome to Japan. He spoke a little English. These are all Japanese guys. I had one American teammate, but I hadn't met him yet. And my coach says, Tyler, you know, great news. We're going to get right to work tomorrow. We're going to training camp. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, that was fast. I said, you know, where's training camp? He's like, oh, it's a few hours away. We'll be gone for like a week, but we'll be back. I was like, okay, so my wife and daughter can come with me? He's like, oh, no, this is just for the team. And my wife, the look that she gave me was like, we just got here and you're leaving for a week? And I was like, yeah, so here's some cash. I think the grocery store is that way. Please be here when I get back. And thankfully she was. But you talk about being uncomfortable right off the bat. And I had already had some of these experiences, and she hadn't had quite as many. So it was, you talk about a challenge. So, you know, when we talk about fear, when we talk about being uncomfortable, these are all things that come up in our lives. I can remember, I work with a medical device company now. And I have to visit different doctors. I go to different offices, and there's times where I'll pull into a parking lot and think, man, I don't really know if I want to go into this office. You know, I don't really know this doctor that well, and what if they don't really like what I have? And what if they don't want to give me the time of day? Right? These are all little thoughts. I don't know if you guys ever had these kinds of thoughts, right? But I have to go have this conversation with this person. Like, I don't know how this is going to go. You know, this might go really bad. And then if that goes bad, well, gosh, then you know, I work on a commission basis a lot of times. Well, gosh, what if I'm not able to earn new business, and then all of a sudden my mind like starts going down this road like, I can't earn new business, I can't pay the mortgage, my gosh, I have 3 girls, we're going to be living in tents. Does anybody have, I don't even have a tent, you know. But I don't know if this ever happens to you, to you guys, but like in my mind, this is what goes on. And we have these voices every single day. We have quiet little voices, and we have really loud voices. And sometimes the loud voices, the ones yelling the most, are the ones saying, no, that's not going to work. Don't do that. Don't do that. Oh, come on, you've seen this. No one's ever done that before. So for me, one of the things that really helps overcome a lot of my fears is having a really, really good plan of action. In 2013, I said, man, I would love to put all these stories of playing overseas and living overseas. I'd like to put them into a book. And maybe only my mom and her book club will actually read this book, but at least it'll be out there, and maybe my kids someday will read it. I'll make them, or I won't feed them. So I said, all right, 2013, here's how I'm going to do this. I've played in about 12 countries or 11 countries at the time. In January, I'm going to write about my first year. And then in February, I'm going to write about my second year. And so by the end of 2013, I'm going to have a book. And that was my big plan. And I thought, but there's the other voices in my head saying, nobody's going to read this book. This is so dumb. Like, why would you waste your time? Da, da, da. But every decision we make, right, we have these different voices that talk like that in our heads. And I said, nope, I'm going to do it. And I had a really clear plan of action. And so that kept me on schedule, and that helped keep these voices and these fears at bay, because I had this plan and I was really focused on it. And I told my wife my plan. It's really good to tell somebody what that plan is, so that they can ask, hey, how you doing with that? How's that book coming? Oh, can I read what you have so far? It's terrible, but keep at it. Okay, that's kind of sometimes that would be the reaction from my wife. But having a really clear plan and action is super important. So a couple things I want to share with you guys and leave with you. A little acronym that hopefully you'll be able to remember and apply. It's called ACT. Okay? So whenever you have these little voices and these fears that pop into your head, I want you to think about this acronym, all right? So the A is for admit what that fear is. Sometimes that fear is really quiet, and it's almost a subconscious thing. You don't even really realize it. And so sometimes you have to actually say, oh, wait a second, I'm feeling uneasy about something. What is this? Okay, that's what this fear is. Let me say it, whether it's in my mind or out loud. You don't want to be like the really weird guy walking around campus like just babbling or whatever. But you can say it in your mind and say, okay, I'm a little nervous about whatever it is, this upcoming project that I have. And once you say it, once you kind of speak it, then it doesn't have as much power over you as it did before. So you admit what that fear is. C, you communicate that fear to someone else. When you are afraid of things, other people want to help you with whatever it is you may be going through. So if you communicate that with a close friend, with a family member, that opens yourself up to being a little bit more vulnerable, okay? And when you're more vulnerable, people love that. People want to help. People want to be on your team and on your side. So communicate that fear to somebody else. And T, toward your target. Move toward your target. So even though you have that fear, you still want to move toward your target. okay? This guy, Adam Brown, who was the Navy SEAL, you know, he says to his wife, I literally am scared of nothing. Nothing makes me afraid. I'm willing to go anywhere and do anything. So he was a guy that had trained for so long, he was able to overcome so many challenges as a Navy SEAL and through that BUDS program. So he got into this mission when he was overseas. And they were attacking a compound, and there was gunfire coming at them, and nobody could get to this one particular position to where they could take out this one particular shooter that was causing so much damage with their platoon. And Adam, he didn't have that fear anymore, right? He was willing to go wherever he had to and do whatever he had to. So Adam said, they're all communicating through radios and says, hey, does anybody have a shot at this guy? Can anybody get to him? No, I don't have it. No, I can't do it. I can't do it. Adam says, I got this. So Adam hops up, he jumps over this wall, and he makes a beeline for this position to where he's going to have a better angle to take out the enemy. And while he was going, he got hit. And he went down, and his teammates had to come in and help get him out of there. So unfortunately, Adam didn't make it. So I wish I had a better ending for you. I wish I could tell you that he was the rock star hero and he made it all the way. But the entire point here is that Adam didn't allow his fears to freeze him. So whatever your fears are, don't allow those fears to freeze you. Sometimes fear can be a really good thing, right? Like if there was a pool of sharks that was right in front of me, or snakes, with snakes and sharks, that would be very frightening for me. So I would not get in there because I would get eaten probably and hurt very, very badly. So that kind of fear, right? Sometimes fear is a good thing because it can protect us. But this other kind of fear I'm talking about, this is the kind of fear that we can't let run our lives and freeze us from moving towards our target. It's the kind of fear that we may experience. A lot of times it's just fear of what people think of us. I had that problem. Sometimes I fear of, what's this person going to think if I do this? What's this person going to think if I say this? People in my own family. People who are friends, maybe complete strangers. I'll give you an example. I have my example. Hold on. I'll come back to it. I got it. Okay. So I'm a pretty tall guy, right? 6'8". I was always the tallest guy just in my class. In like 6th grade, I'm taller than all my teachers, right? And in high school, in junior high and high school, it was kind of awkward for me, right? Because I wanted more than anything just to kind of blend in, fit in, be cool, okay? There wasn't a cool bone in my body, ever. My wife will attest to that. But I always wanted to kind of just blend in and be part. I didn't want to like stick out and like be weird. Like at school dances, the worst, right? You ever try to dance with a girl and she's like way down here, you're like, this is so weird, you know? Okay, so that's kind of how like I felt, right? And like the big, tall, kind of awkward guy. And you know, my buddies are like, oh, you know, the real cool guys, they can dance really well and everything. And I'm just like, all I can do is slow dance. I'm not even good at that, okay? And so for a long time, I didn't really embrace the way God had made me. And I remember I was playing, about 25 years old, I was playing in the NBA D League. It's now the G League, it's the minor league for the NBA. And we had a guy come in and he was talking to us and he said, he was talking a little bit about identity. And he said, basketball and being a basketball player is not who you are. Basketball is what you do. He said, basketball is not who you are, it's what you do. And for all the guys in the room, we're like, this guy's an idiot, man. We are basketball players, okay? I mean, that was like our main thing. We're all trying to make the NBA. Okay, we all thought we were a lot better than we were, but we weren't that good because we were in the minor leagues, right? So all of us were missing something, but we all thought we were better than we were. But that really stuck with me. And, you know, I really put a lot of thought into it. I'm like, man, is that really true? Like, all these years I've kind of felt like, no, like I'm a basketball player. Like, what do you do? Who are you? I play basketball. And I was like, man, that's a really good point. You know, whatever your job is, and whatever your location is, and whatever you're doing, if you're a student, if you're a CEO, you're a professor, whatever you do, it's not who you are. It's part of who you are, but it's what you do. And for me, my identity lied in something much greater. So for me, I'm a man of faith. I'm a Christian man. I believe in God. I don't believe that I'm just a medical device guy, right? I'm not just an entrepreneur. That is a part of who I am, and I love what I do, but it's really important, I think, to make that distinction, because sometimes when you're a basketball player and all of a sudden, boom, my career's over at 33 years old. Well, who am I now, right? I'm not. I don't know who I am, and so fortunately, I didn't really have that issue and that problem. I remember my dad saying to me, in college, because I was so wrapped up in playing basketball, and that was a big part of who I was in college. We saw the video, and we had a really great run to the Sweet 16 that year, my junior year. And my dad said, you know, Tyler, I think it's going to be really hard for you when you're done with college. And I was like, well, why do you say that? He's like, because, you know, basketball will be over, and you know, that's kind of like a lot of who you are. And you know, I didn't really know how to take that. It's, you know, maybe in a good way, okay, maybe a good warning, or maybe a good way for me to start thinking about maybe who I really was beyond being a basketball player. But between his words and the words of this other man when I was 25, you know, I put a lot of thought of, okay, you know, whatever I'm doing, it doesn't just mean that that's who I am. I'm not only the owner of this company, but I'm much, much more than that. So just want to kind of share that with you guys too. So last couple things here, and then we'll wrap up. It's funny, you know, I saw the video, it reminded me, so that game that we played Carolina, it was on a Sunday, and we flew home, and we landed at like 3 in the morning at State College Airport, and there was a whole bunch of people like at the airport, which like blew us away, because like, it's 3 in the morning, like why would anyone be at an airport at 3 in the morning unless you're getting ready for a flight at like 4, and there were no flights at 4, so they were all really excited, and you know, we went back home and got a couple hours sleep. I had a 9 a.m. class, and so I walked into class, and I wasn't really late. I was like a couple minutes late, and I look up, and all the lights are out. I'm like, oh man, like I don't know what to think. And the professor was playing the basketball game on the screen as I walked in. And I'm like, that is so cool. I guess it's not that big a deal that I'm late now, huh? Because I was just there, so that's why I'm late. But it was kind of funny. So, all right, two quick stories, and then we'll wrap up. One of the places I played was a country called Uruguay, or Uruguay, as they say down there. Has anybody ever heard of Uruguay? Awesome. All right. Could you find it on a map? I bet a lot of you could. That's impressive. I could not. So when I was 24 years old, I got a one-line email, and it said, "Hello, Tyler. My name is Daniel Morales. Would you like to play in Uruguay?" And I said, wow, I don't know where Uruguay is, but you'd like to pay me to play basketball, and I have no other offers at the time. It was August, and so that's kind of late in the summer. If you don't have anything by like July, you get really, really worried. And so I'm like a month into this, and I'm like, yes, I would. I'm coming. Okay, have your passport ready. We send you tickets in 24 hours. So this is the kind of life I led. Like I would get an email or a call, and I'd have to be ready to go. So I pack up my stuff, hop on a plane, and fly down there, and I land in Montevideo. I always thought that was such a cool name in like 7th grade, Montevideo. What a cool capital building or capital name. So I landed in Montevideo. My coach picks me up, and he says, "Oh, Tyler, are you hungry?" He spoke a little bit of English. I'm like, "Oh man, thank goodness," you know, because learned a little bit of Spanish in high school. I had 1 semester at Penn State, but I'm like, this is going to be great. And my previous 2 countries, I went to Holland and I went to Italy. And I didn't do very well with either one of those languages. So I'm like, Spanish, okay, I have a little bit of an understanding. This is going to be fun. So I said, yeah, coach, I'm hungry. He says, okay, we will stop at a restaurant and have something to eat. I said, great. So we started driving, and I was under the assumption that our team was, kind of close to Montevideo in the airport, and I knew the city. It was called Salto, and I see a sign that says Salto 600. I'm like, 600. I'm like, those are usually miles in the U.S., but are we 600 kilometers from where we're going? Oh yes, Tyler, we have 600 kilometers. So that's like over a 6-hour drive, and these are not like really nice, smooth highways. This is like back roads. There's no lines on the road, right? It's like every man for himself. And so I'm like, hey, this is gonna be a long trip. So we stop at this restaurant, and he says, okay, what would you like to eat? I'm like, I don't know, what do you guys eat here? And they're like, oh, well, I will order some things. Okay, great. So he cuts off a little slice of something, and he hands it to me and says, try this. I was like, okay. So I tried it. I'm like, that was really good. It was kind of like a sausagey thing. I don't know, I've never had it before. I'm like, what was that? He says, that was called chorizo. I'm like, chorizo, mental note, really good. I got to have some more of that. And then he cuts up something else and he hands it to me. And he says, try this. I'm like, what's that? He says, I will tell you after you eat it. So, okay. So I take a bite of it, and I immediately want to throw it up all over the table. But I don't, because I'm a considerate friend, an American, and I say, okay, I'm just like, get it down, give me some water, right? So I'm reaching for my glass, and I get it down. I'm like, Javier, what was that? He's just laughing. He says, that was cow's blood. It's like, cow's blood? How do you get it into like a hard? I don't really even want to know, Javier. But thank you. And so Javier, we leave the restaurant, and we get all the way up to Salto, like 6-7 hours later, and he says, okay, we're gonna go to the gym first thing. I said, great. He's like, you'll meet your teammates, and it'll be great. People are excited to meet you. So this particular team only had 1 American on the team. I was the only guy. And it was a small little town in Uruguay, so this was like their big thing. They had soccer there, which was really big, but their pro basketball team was really big news in their town. So this new American coming in, was kind of a big deal for them. Little did they know they were getting me, not Michael Jordan. So we go in, we walk into the gym, and the court is like a I don't know how to explain it, but there was like a cage around it kind of, and there was no like individual seats like in the BJC. It was just like hard concrete, just like steps, and people just sat on that. I'm like, okay. And then I look at the floor, and the floor, it was not a wooden floor like we would normally play on. It was some hard tile concrete thing. I'm like, so this is our home gym, huh? Javier's like, yep, this is it. Do you like it? I'm like, I love it, Javier. I love it. So he says, the local news channel wants to do an interview with you. I said, oh, okay, great. Well, this will be fun. So he calls the guy over, the reporter. He has a microphone, and the camera guy is there, and the camera's hot. And the reporter says, boom, and puts the microphone right in my face. And I'm like, all right, Javier, gone, man. Javier's gone. Like, I don't know where he is. I don't know what this guy just asked me. The camera's looking at me. He's got a little light on, and I'm like, oh boy. Okay, what Spanish do I remember? Something about a biblioteca. Something about my homework, my tarea, and boy, do I like Uruguay. Boy, I love Uruguay. And I don't know, something about a bicycle was probably thrown in there. It was really, really interesting. Like, Javier, don't you ever do that to me again, man. That was so, I just embarrassed future generations of all my family. Like, that was not good, not good. So then after that, we went to our little place where I was going to be staying. It was kind of a rundown hotel. And I walked in, it was smaller than your freshman dorm room. Everybody remembers their freshman dorm room? Yes, all right, it was like that, but smaller. Not really anything in there. It was a bed. Didn't even have room for a TV, so they kind of bolted it to like a wall in the corner a little bit. And I said, as I opened this door, I'm like, how in the world am I going to live here for the next 9 months? And this is before I kind of had my revelation of being comfortable being uncomfortable. And I'm like, oh boy. And somewhere, you know, deep in the recesses of my brain, this little verse popped into my head, and it was like, I can be content in any and every situation. And I was like, boy, I remember Paul said that. I don't know where he said that, but like, okay, he was content in like a first century jail. I can probably be content in my little dorm room here in Uruguay. And wouldn't you know, so when I went to the gym again, so I'm feeling very, very uncomfortable. I've already had this little interview. I have this awful place I'm really not excited about living. And this guy comes up to me. He's like 17 years old. And he says in very good English, he says, Tyler, my name is Diego. I'm your teammate. I'm like, I like you already, Diego. We can understand each other. And he says, tomorrow, you will come to my house for lunch. And just like that, I'm like, well, yes, I will. You want to feed me? I mean, you speak English? Like, we are best friends, Diego. I don't know if you knew this, but we are best friends already. And so I ended up having the absolute best time in Uruguay. The people there were so generous. They were so fun. They had such an energy about them. My very first game, all these people like got kicked out of the game because it's so rowdy at these games. I played in one game. We were up by about 15 points, second quarter. Guy runs onto the floor. And they stopped the game, referee stopped the game, they've got to get this guy off the floor. So to give you an idea, they have riot police at every single home game of ours. I'm like, what's with the riot police? Like, is there going to be like a coup or something in the country? Like, I don't know about this. And the riot police came onto the floor, and they couldn't get this guy off the floor, and like even his own like teammates couldn't get him off. And so the referees go, tweet, 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 game over. I'm like, it's second quarter. Like, what do you mean game over? And they said, no, you know, we can't get this guy off the floor. That's game over. And so these kinds of things would happen in Uruguay. Like, it was just so crazy and chaotic. I'm like, are we going to replay this? Nope, that's it. You guys are ahead, you win. I'm like, okay, cool with me. We'll take that win. And so Uruguay, my initial impression was very uncomfortable. I didn't know how this was going to go, but I ended up having the best time. I ended up going back there and playing 3 times. So I have like 3 times the stories of just craziness and madness. But 3 times I kept going back there because I was okay with being a little bit uncomfortable. Last story, then we'll let you guys go. The third time I went to Uruguay, I was married at this time. We had a 3-year-old daughter, and we had another one on the way. My wife was 6 months pregnant. And it was, I think, around February at this point. I was already down in Uruguay, and I was trying to get an airplane ticket for my wife to come down. And you ever tried to like book with only miles, and how it can be like impossible sometimes? So that was me. I had called United Airlines. The team was not going to buy a ticket for my wife and my daughter, so I had to get it on my own. They were really expensive. And I said, man, I'll just use miles. And so I'm talking to United, and I say, do you have anything like next week? No. Next month? No. And anytime in the next like 6 months? No. Like, man, I'm not going to see my wife or my daughter, and you know, she's pregnant. I said, I got to get her down here. I said, do you have anything today? And they go, hold on. Oh yeah, we have something. It leaves in 90 minutes. I'm like, all right, hold that, reserve that for me. So I click over, I call my wife. I said, sweetheart, what you doing? She's like, oh, you know, I'm at the house, Hannah's taking a bath. I was like, great. Hey, good news. Got a ticket, got airlines. Oh, great, yeah. Well, when's it leave? So it leaves in 90 minutes. From State College though, which is good. And she's like, 90 minutes? Are you kidding me? Like, you want me to pack up everything and move to a different country in 90 minutes? I'm like, yeah, I think you can do it. She's like, oh my gosh, I hate you. Okay, just hang on. I'll see what I can do. I was like, okay, great. See you, bye. I was like, the ticket will be at the airport. You know, let's pick it up there. So somehow she races around this house, throws some stuff in a bag, grabs, and she tells me later, she's like, I just left Hannah in the bath. I'm running around the house, like, you know, she's just playing in the bath, and I'm like, okay, time to get dressed. We're leaving the country. So she, they get to the airport, and I also told her, I might have called her back and said, oh, and one more thing, can you bring an air mattress? She's like, why do I need an air mattress? Do we not have a bed in the apartment? I'm like, just bring it in case we don't have a bed in the apartment. Because we didn't have a bed in the apartment. We had one, but there were 3 of us, and the one bed was not going to fit 2 of us. So I figured, pregnant lady can sleep in the bed, I'll sleep on the air mattress. So I said, just bring the air mattress. So she gets to the airport, and the other part I left out was she had to actually fly through 5 different countries to get down there. So she started in State College, went to Philly. I count U.S., that counts as a country. And then she went up to Canada, and then down to Brazil, and then Argentina, and then Uruguay. So it took a little while to get there, and so she gets off the plane, and my sweet, sweet wife, she has our 3-year-old, and she just like kind of hands me Hannah, and she's like, here you go. I'm like, sweetheart, you're here. Here's your child. Don't you ever do that to me again. You're gonna love Uruguay. So she had her own times of being uncomfortable, and I applaud her for that. She's the true hero of all this journey and things that we went through. And then there were a lot of times where we were scared. I remember when my oldest daughter, she was 4 years old. We were in Japan at the time. We blend in really well in Japan, if you can imagine. My wife's blonde hair, blue eyes, with 3 little blondies at home. And so we got to Japan, and we're like, hey, we're home. You know, everybody does not look like us. So we go to the doctor this one time, and the doctor, you know, none of the nurses spoke English, and we say, you know, our daughter's really sick. Like, you know, she's got this huge high fever. Like, you know, we need something to help her. And really having an awful time communicating, and the doctor comes in and he's like, oh, squishy English, and he speaks a little bit of English. I'm like, okay, good, like, can you help her? And he says, hey, your daughter, hey, she need chemotherapy. And I'm like, she doesn't have cancer. She's on fire. Like, we need some kind of, you know, aspirin or something. Do you have anything? And he's like, hey, chemotherapy. And I'm like, no, not chemotherapy. No cancer drugs here. And so, but you talk about being frightened and scared when I would go on road trips. For whatever reason, every time I went on a road trip, boom, kid got sick. I don't know what it was, but it was like, oh, Dad's leaving? I feel terrible. Like, they get sick, and so she'd be, you know, she couldn't communicate with these doctors and nurses and things, you know, and so a lot of kind of frightening times for her. So when you have those fears, and when you have those frightening times, act. Okay, admit what those fears are to yourself. Communicate what they are to someone else, because they're going to want to be with you. They're going to want to help you. And toward your target. Continue toward your target. Don't let that fear freeze you. Whenever that fear freezes you, move right towards your target. Okay, keep going towards your target. Don't let those fears deny you of something that you're going for. And remember that plan of action, right? All you guys have these awesome ideas. I can't wait to hear about them. And focus on that goal, have a really good, clear plan of action. That's going to help a ton with your fears. Okay? Thank you guys so much for having me, and have a great night.